Hi, and welcome to 3 Things in 3 Minutes. I'm Nersi. Today, we are looking at my father's work from Renegade Game Studios. It plays 2 to 4 players and plays in about 3 hours. What it's about: my father's work is an app-driven competitive worker placement gothic horror game. So players play as the children and their descendants of a mad scientist in the late 19th century European town, completing dubious science experiments over 3 generations in 3 scenarios. Now each round, players will place all their workers on spaces in their estate or the town to gain experiments, obtain resources to complete experiments, enshrine knowledge into permanent abilities, and expand the estate, all the while trying to control their insanity while also the town's angry mob. The app will also present players with choices that will have ramifications for how the game evolves. And after 3 rounds, the current generation ends. All of your workers die, you lose most of your knowledge and resources, and the town board changes. Then a new generation of workers take over, and at the end of 3 generations, whoever has the most points wins. So what I like: my father's work adds a ton of narrative to the familiar mechanics of worker placement and resource management, with the app-based decisions having surprising benefits or penalties later in the game, and that really integrates the narrative into the mechanics. And using the pages in a book that represents the town nicely lets it evolve in branching ways depending on your choices with fairly minimal setup. The game also has some great thematic production, even if some of the bits are strangely overproduced. And also the unconventional loss of resources at the end of each generation forces you to be efficient with your worker's lifespan, which also fits well into the theme. And the interchangeable bases are what determine your worker type, which means that you can choose any model as yourself and your spouse, which really helps increase representation in the game. Now, points to consider: this is a long game, and the narrative is what keeps you engaged, because the mechanics themselves don't really ever change that much, especially since you have to rebuild your resources every generation. And even though the game does have a mechanic for saving the game between generations, it's really meant to be played in one sitting. And though there are 3 branching scenarios, much of the fun of the game comes from the surprise of the narrative, so you may find you lose some of that if you play it a lot. And the timing to complete the experiments is very tight, so you often pursue whatever random experience you have on hand rather than planning far out, especially in the late game if the angry mob prevents you from taking actions in town. And some people may be turned off that the app is mandatory and does not allow for solo play. And as a tip, use a small device for the app, because you'll have to pass it around for players to read secretly a lot. So, in summary, it's an app-driven worker placement gothic horror game that cleverly merges the narratives and mechanics, though the game's length can push its welcome. Your worker's death at the end of each generation requires making some hard choices about efficiency, even if that means that the resetting can really limit your choices. And the surprises of the branching story and the evolving town are thematically excellent, though the underlying mechanics are simple enough that they'll feel very familiar. Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.